actually, on the last page, when you get your test, and I'll remind you of this, there's a word bank. So all the words that go in, match with those definitions, will be in the word bank. So you can match those up, okay? All right. So, we talked this time since the first exam about goals. Tell me something about goals, what they must be. Goal, if you're going to have a goal with a client, create a goal with a client, that goal should be what?
Realistic.
Realistic. Good. What else?
Y'all both should agree about what it's gonna be.
It should be attainable, shouldn't it? Should be measurable, attainable, and practical. Measure, should be able to measure it, attain it, and it should be practical. Now, if you don't know the answer to this one, I'm just going to scream. Because when we started out interviewing our client here, doing our interviews in class, what have we spent a lot of time doing? Open-ended questions, getting information. We've been assessing him. We've spent days now doing the assessment. Now, granted, the days that we've spent, if you put them all together, would probably be like one big session, one good session. But we want to spend time getting this information, assessing him, before we get to intervention. So, moving quickly, if I say to you, this is a true-false, for instance, and I say, moving quickly from assessment to intervention benefits the client, what's the answer going to be to that?
False.
False, false, false. Right. Because we got to spend that time. What have I said? Sometimes when you just start out, you really want to get to those goals and objectives. That's what it's all about to you. But you've got to spend the time on the front end if you want the result to be practical and a good result for the client. Okay. If you have a client and they're in crisis, and maybe y'all had goals and objectives, and he comes in but he's in a crisis, are you going to continue on working with your goals and objectives that day, or are you going to attend to the crisis? Just practically, what would you think?
Crisis.
The crisis, because they're not going to be able to focus on what you planned, are they? No. You need to focus on that crisis first. Should we use a lot of why questions with a client?
No,
Why not?
because it sounds like that we are kind of more like,
We're judging,
we're
aren't
good in judging, yeah.
we? Yeah, like we know more,
Go on.
and we're judging them. You had it. Okay. How many generations, if you're doing a genogram, how many generations should you have minimally?
3.
Good. What does NASW stand for?
National Association of Social Workers.
Good. National Association of Social Workers. Do you as a social worker want a client to be dependent on you in order to build trust?
No.
No, never. Never. You do not foster dependency, because what's going to happen one day?
Your sessions will be over.
Sessions will be over, you'll be gone, they'll be on their own. You may move. You may give up social work. I mean, who knows? You never want them to be dependent on you. And this is an important thing to remember. Assessment occurs no matter what system you're working with. So if you're doing community social work and you're working with a whole community, you've got to assess them. If you're working with a family, you have to assess. If you're working with an individual, assess. Is it helpful sometimes for us as a social worker to disclose something? It is helpful sometimes, but we have to be careful about it, don't we? But if the question is it helpful sometimes, that would be yes, indeed, that's true. and know what the generalist perspective is. Again, that's something that you'll hear throughout the BSW program. Give me an example, anybody, of a formal social work resource and an informal resource. If you're a social worker, and you might go to this for a formal resource or an informal resource. Let's do the formal first. If you were a client, where would you go for formal help? Yes,
Would one be like going to like an NA or AA meeting?
it could be. That's not really formal in a
Okay.
way, but what would be formal? If you needed help, if you didn't have enough food to eat, or you were concerned about your children, you needed food stamps, or not food stamps anymore, but a voucher, where would you go?
Food bank?
You could go there.
Social service.
Thank you. DSS, Department of Social Services would be one, but the food bank would also be one. The Department of Social Services offers more. Catholic Social Ministries would be one. How,